Hello and good day. Today we're going to talk more about mental models. These are not cast in bronze, you can change them. And as you change them, you find that your life alters and for the better. Let me give you an example. So don't just listen to me, put yourself in the situation that I'm about to lay out to you. You're going for an important appointment, you're driving, you're running late. You're stuck in a traffic jam, not just a regular run-of-the-mill traffic jam, but a real Lulu. It's an incredibly hot day and the air conditioning in your car has broken down. Got that? Don't listen to me. Put yourself in that situation. You're driving to an important appointment, you're running late, you're stuck in a massive traffic jam, it's really hot and your air conditioning isn't working. And suddenly someone cuts in front of you and almost causes an accident. What are your feelings towards the driver of that car? Odds are very good that loving kindness is not it. But let me share some information with you. The driver of this car that cut you off so rudely has received some disquieting news. His son has been involved in an accident and he's desperately trying to get to the hospital, and he has no knowledge of whether or not he will ever see his son alive again. So what happens when I share this information with you? Can you feel the anger and rage palpably drain away to be replaced by compassion for a fellow human being in an unfortunate predicament? Most people would say yes. Now the point is, you don't really know whether the person who cut you off was an inconsiderate jerk or a distraught father. But the even more important point is, it really doesn't matter. You have the choice of determining what is the emotional domain you occupy. In all likelihood, you never even recognize that number one, you had a choice, and number two, you exercised that choice. But you did. And that determines the emotional domain you occupy and the way you experience life. And the reason, by the way, that the vast majority of people occupy a place of rage at the driver is because of the mental models that they hold. Let me share a story with you. One of my clients was dealing with a large group of salespeople, and he had recently made a change in the compensation structure, as a result of which some of them received a slightly lower payout, and others who were new to the company got more. And his sales force was up in arms. He thought that this would be a simple change, but there was such a revolt that he actually had to speak to them, and he spoke to them in groups of about 50. And the first two meetings were disastrous. As he related to me afterwards, he said, "Sri Kumar, I remembered your example of the rude driver, and I did things differently. For the third meeting, I said, please hold while I tell you something. I do recognize that some of you have had your compensation reduced and you're justifiably angry about it, and you can be angry about it. But on the other hand, the measures that I have taken have improved the compensation for the new salespeople, and as a result of which they will probably become more successful and remain with the company. And as the company prospers, you will benefit in many different ways. Also, we are investing heavily in computer programs which will enable you to provide a better service for your clients." So you can either be angry, and this will not only ruin your day, but it will also have a spillover negative effect on your staff. Or you can say, okay, this is for the greater good of the company and I'm willing to put up with it because this company has so many other benefits that it offers both to me and my clients. You get to decide which is the emotional domain you occupy. And you wouldn't believe it, I didn't get any pushback at all. I conducted all the other meetings along these lines and the tumult died down immediately. It is a very powerful program when you recognize that you have the ability to choose the emotional domain you occupy and you make this decision dozens of times every day. Here is an exercise that will show you the power of the concept I just discussed. It's called alternate reality. Pick any situation in your life that is of concern to you. Something which is soaking up a fair amount of your emotional energy. Can be a personal situation, can be a professional situation, doesn't really matter. The only thing that's needed is that it right now engages you deeply and your emotional energy is tied up in that. Write down that situation. In all likelihood, you think you're describing the reality. Wrong. You're describing a reality. What I would now like you to do is construct an alternate reality. And this alternate reality should have two parameters. Number one, it should be better than the one you're experiencing. That's a no-brainer. You don't want to create a reality which is worse than the one you're experiencing. And number two, it should be something that you can plausibly believe. Let me give you an example. This comes from the executive education program that I was conducting at a top business school, and it was actually a small group exercise. And there was someone who was a senior manufacturing executive who was in a team, and the team was totally non-functional. And he was feeling very sorry for himself. He was feeling that he was afflicted with a team that didn't care. And one of the other members of the team said, "Perhaps the team has not been inflicted on you, perhaps you have been inflicted on the team." And he pointed out that every time this person spoke about members of the team, he never referred to them by name. He had a label for each one of them. This one's lazy, this one's ignorant, this one doesn't care, and he referred to them by the labels he had stuck on them. And the other person suggested that if you really want a team to be functional, this is not the best way to think of your team members. And he came up with an alternate reality. Every member of the team wants to help and they don't know how, and it's your job to help them help the team. He thought he could work with that, and the next time they had a team meeting, he was on time and another member was on time and everybody else was late. Normally, he would have accosted the persons who were late, accused them of not being respectful of his time, and it would have gone on a downward spiral for them. But this time he restrained himself and he went to one of the members who came late and said, "Listen, the last time we met, you made a statement, and I think that it could be very highly relevant. Would you mind repeating it?" The other person was a little taken aback, didn't know if his leg was being pulled, but he did repeat the statement, and from then on, they went on with the meeting. And throughout the course of the meeting, my student had in the back of his mind running like a mantra, "Everybody wants to help, but they don't know how. My job to help them help." During the course of that meeting, he noticed that arrogant sincerely asked him for his opinion on something. Lazy volunteered to do something that nobody was ready to do. Clueless made an industry comment which was so prescient that they had to throw out a whole bunch of their assumptions. In short, every member of the team behaved in a manner diametrically opposed to the label that he had stuck on them. That was a very productive meeting. Everybody was surprised. Nobody quite knew what was happening except my student. And in the debrief, he said, "Professor Rao, if one person acting differently can make such a difference, what have I been missing my whole life?" That's the power of the alternate reality exercise. So here's what you do again to summarize. Pick a situation in your life which is soaking up a fair deal of your emotional energy. Write out that situation. You think you're describing the reality, but you're not. You're describing a reality. Construct another reality, an alternate reality, which is better than the one you're experiencing and which you can plausibly believe at some level. And then start living as if the alternate reality were the reality. As you do that, you'll find two things start to happen. You'll find a lot of evidence that it's not working. Throw it out, ignore it. You'll find some evidence that it is working. Rejoice in it, and most important, write it down. This is where some people get lazy. They're in the shower when they remember something that shows the reality is working, and they think, I'm not going to write it down, I'll remember. You don't even remember what you had for lunch yesterday. What makes you think you'll remember this? Don't get lazy. Don't spoil the ship for hip and not the tar. Write it down. When you write it down, you'll find in a relatively short amount of time, there is an enormous amount of evidence in your handwriting that your alternate reality is working. That's the signal for you to work harder. And when you do, you will tip over. You will tip over into a reality which is the one that you constructed, which is better than the one you're experiencing. And by definition, your life will have improved right there. Try it. This is an extremely powerful exercise.